Welcome to the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Varga, double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist since 2011 with over 20,000 rejuvenation procedures performed. I'm an international clinical trainer for other physicians and nurses as well, celebrity skin expert, having been featured on some of the world's top proactive aging podcasts, and much, much more. Learn more at rachelvarga.ca and enjoy today's episode. Welcome everyone to today's episode on the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm your host, a humble human on a mission, simply here to help you achieve and receive the best hair, skin, and nails of your life. And also, how can we cultivate more energy and live a more radiant, beautiful life? In today's show, we are discussing the body's innate intelligence, fasting for healing, and ketosis for slowing skin aging with Ben Azadi. Ben and I had the pleasure of meeting a few weeks ago at a conference in West Palm Beach, Florida. I loved what he was doing. We hit it off straight away, and now he's on the show. So this is how life works. The world just brings us together, and we're here to help you live your best life. Let me tell you a little bit about Ben. And in 2008, Ben Azadi went through a personal health transformation of shedding 80 pounds of pure fat. Ever since, Ben Azadi FDN-P, which stands for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Practitioner, has been on a mission to help 1 billion people live a healthier lifestyle. Ben is the author of 4 best-selling books: Keto Flex, The Perfect Health Booklet, The Intermittent Fasting Cheat Sheet, and The Power of Sleep. Ben has been the go-to source for intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet. He is known as a health detective because he investigates dysfunction and he educates, not medicates, to bring the body back to normal function. Ben is the founder of Keto Camp, a global brand bringing awareness to ancient healing strategies such as the keto diet and fasting. Ben is the host of a top 15 podcast, an award-winning podcast, the Keto Camp podcast, and the fast-growing Keto Camp YouTube channel with over 150,000 subscribers, and TikTok channel with over 200,000 subscribers, and over 30 million video downloads. And by the way, I'm going to be making a guest appearance on the Keto Camp podcast, so be sure to subscribe to Ben's show as well. If you like the content here, you're also going to love Ben. Welcome, Ben Azadi, best-selling author of Keto Flex. How are you today?
Rachel, I'm doing absolutely amazing, and I'm excited to be with you today. I love your work. Like you said, we met in person in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we were the only two in that mastermind wearing blue blocking glasses, right? And we noticed that about each other. So I'm grateful to be here with you and your audience today.
Do you remember when we were going around the room introducing each other that I kind of called everybody out? I'm like, this is a biohacking conference. Why are there only a handful of us wearing our circadian rhythm balancing devices?
I like that name for it. That's a great name for it. And yeah, that was the first thing you said. I'm like, oh, well, I'm wearing mine, so she's not calling me out.
Yeah, there we go. And it's funny when we go to these events, you kind of look around the room. It's like usually people look super healthy, and then they're wearing these different gadgets and biohacking tools and circadian rhythm balancing glasses. And it's like, okay, you're with biohackers. And then you weren't there when I was performing live, but I actually brought all my nootropics in my bag with me. I spread it out on the table. I'm like, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take all these adaptogens so that I could remain cool, calm, and collected and not have an ounce of nervousness to get on stage. And then everyone was like, oh, I want some of that. And then I was like this nootropics dealer backstage. I'm like, this is a biohacking conference. We show up, we have a lot of fun, and we have the energy to do the work that we do. So what did you do to prep for your on-stage talk?
Well, I wish I would have known about your stack of nootropics. I would have just knocked on your door and be like, hey, Rachel, I'm about to go on stage. Where's the stack? That's awesome. What did I do on that morning? I've been experimenting with methylene blue suppository, and it's been working well for me. I feel like my brain is just on fire. So I'll kind of stack methylene blue suppository, about 60 milligrams of that with red light therapy, which I know you're huge on, and some breath work. After 30 minutes, I'm just like ready to go. I've also been using some of the Newtopia stuff from
Yep.
Bioptimizers. Yeah, was that in your
Mhm.
stack as well, or what was in yours?
Sure was.
Okay, what was in yours?
Sure
I'm
was.
curious now.
I had a little focused savagery.
Yeah,
There was a calm one. I actually took a few of them, like a half amount of about 3 different ones. They have the funnest names too.
they
I'll
do.
actually give them to my husband to take because he's, as you know, a 6-time pro world champion kickboxer, to give him focus and clarity
Cool.
on, when he's competing. And he's kind of always nervous about taking that stuff. He's like, I don't know how it's gonna make me perform. So he just takes like a little bit of it. I'm like, you gotta just do the full thing because trust me, you're gonna feel like a rock star.
You really do. Yeah, I feel great. And Utopia has some great different stacks and products. They have what I forget the one what it's called. It's the red powder you mix with water. I love that one. I just love the taste of it, but I also feel really good with that one.
Yeah, definitely. They've been on the show, Mad
Yeah,
Gallant and all those guys. Yeah, a
yeah,
couple of
they're
times.
awesome.
Wade Lightheart, super rad people. So, Ben, I would love to have you share with everybody what is your story? Because you have your FDN-P. By the way, I'm going to be getting my functional diagnostic nutritionist training too.
Oh,
So stay
cool.
tuned for that, just to add that to my toolkit of nursing, aesthetic nursing, and FDN-P. But tell us your story and how you're making an impact in the world.
Yeah, well, first of all, like I love how committed you are to learning and educating because you already have so many certifications and titles by your name. It's like super impressive, and you're adding another one. So kudos to you. I love that. FDN has been great for me. For me, my story was growing up here in America, following a standard American diet, which we both know is stupid American diet, and that could be said to the diet in Canada or Australia. Toxic, heavily processed, and I didn't know any better growing up. My parents were divorced. I had too much time on my hands. And I followed that diet. I followed a bad lifestyle and I ate processed foods. My mom worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken fast food restaurant. So I ate really bad growing up and I had bad habits growing up, drugs and alcohol, bad relationships. And I was obese as a kid. I was very much overweight, unhealthy, both physically obese and mentally obese with low self esteem, depression, and really bad behaviors. And when I was an adult, like all of those behaviors transferred into my adulthood, where I found myself back in 2008. I was a 250-pound obese man, 24 years old, broken, ready to give up on life. Honestly, I was looking for ways to end my life because I was depressed. I had suicidal thoughts. I was crying every day. I was hurting. And I was just confused by all this nutritional jargon. I didn't see a way out. And I really wanted to just end my life and get things over with. And I explored that many times. And every time I explored that, Rachel, I just kept thinking about my mom. And if I took my life, what would she have to deal with? Like the devastation. And I just kept thinking about her and it stopped me. And I knew I had to figure things out. And it was a turning point for me. And I'm looking back now and I see it as a huge blessing. And thank God I went through that. But when you're going through something like that, like rock bottom, it's hard to see why you're going through it. It's hard to see that it's happening for you, not to you. So what the first thing that happened for me was a book. My best friend handed me a book and said, I know you're going through a tough time. I think you should read this book. I think it'll help you. And I read that book, which led to 5 books and 10 books and 20 books. And I read authors like Dr. Wayne Dyer and Bob Proctor and Tony Robbins and all these incredible people. And it opened up a whole new world to me. But the number one thing the books did for me was helped me take ownership and responsibility for the first time ever. And that word is so important, Rachel, as you know. Responsibility is your ability to respond to life. Up until that point, my ability to respond to life was poor. I was the victim of my genetics, my enabling family members, my slow metabolism. But when you take ownership and responsibility, you stop being a victim of your history and you start to become a victor of your destiny. And that's exactly what I did. I went through this incredible transformation in 9 months where I lost 80 pounds. I went from 34% body fat to 6% body fat, physical six pack. But the most important thing was a mental six pack. And that was about 14 years ago. And I've been a student of health and nutrition ever since, learning and applying and unlearning and relearning. So that's how things got started for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that very personal part of your journey, Ben, of going through a really tough time with your physical self, mental self, spiritual self, and then coming out on the other side to be vulnerable and share that, because not all of us live bright, shiny lives, right? There's always these things running in the background. And one of the things that really struck me about your story was the fact that you lost all this weight. And I'm going to also assume that you obviously did a number of detoxes as well. So you can't help but wonder if there was an overgrowth of yeast, fungi, toxins, organisms, and parasites that were with your body when you were in that overweight alkaline state that were actually messing with your brain and having you think thoughts that were just not good for you, right? So that's something that I've been diving deep in, is understanding how we can optimize our energy to get the best hair, skin, nails of your life. And when you go through fasting, it's just such an incredible way to heal the body. And this isn't going to be medical advice. It's educational information only. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. But unfortunately, in North America, a lot of practitioners don't understand really the science of detoxifying the body, supporting the liver, and the wonderful benefits of fasting. It's still kind of fringe, but it's getting there. So I would love to ask you, Ben, well, we're going to talk about the body's innate intelligence in just a second, so stay tuned for that. But what is radiance to you when you see a man or woman and you're gravitated to them? What do you think radiance is?
Yeah, this is a perfect question because I just got back from Orlando, as I was telling you before we hit record, and I actually went for pleasure this time. It wasn't for work or anything. I went with my fiance to watch The Killers, which they're a rock band. They're my favorite rock band, but it's the reason I'm bringing them up because it relates to your question. Watching the lead singer Brandon Flowers on stage, radiant, happy, a showman, like really like has the whole crowd in the palm of his hands. And yeah, he's a musician, but that's not why he's radiant. He's radiant, and those who are radiant to me, men, women, they're radiant because they're living on purpose with their purpose. They understand what's important to them. Their telos, the Greek calls it your highest values. They determine their highest values, and then they align their daily activities to line up with their highest values. They're living on purpose with their purpose. It gives them oxygen, it gives them energy, it gives them fuel, and they just radiate that with every word. You have conversations with them and you feel charged up. You just see it oozing from their skin and their eyes, this energy that you feel. And that's what I saw with Brandon Flowers from the Killers last night. It's what I see with you, Rachel. It's what I see with people who are actually doing the things they love to do and saying no to the things that don't serve them. So that to me is true radiance.
Wonderful. Yeah, radiance to me is like an energy, it's vibe. It's when you look at someone's skin and their skin looks glassy, it has a shine to them, kind of like everybody in, Miami, West Palm Beach, Florida, like this like subtle, gentle sweat where your skin is just, everybody's skin is just kind of glistening a
The
little bit.
humidity helps with that for sure.
Oh, I loved it. It's like everybody looks hot down there because you're literally hot.
Yes.
But there's also this clarity to the eyes. So when you're looking to find people to support you on your health optimization journey, like Ben, one of the things I really like about you is that you have a clarity to your speech. You have very radiant looking skin. I'm sure the Florida humidity has something to do with that. But your eyes are very clear. You're very focused. You have a lot of mental clarity because you're doing the work. And it's when we do the work, even though, 10, 15 years ago, you were really overweight, our body has this wonderful ability to remake itself every 7 to 8 years on a cellular level. So just because you abused yourself in the past, like a lot of young men that I speak with have, crushed their livers through alcoholism in their teens and 20s, and now they're in their early 30s on hormone replacement, hair loss, and all this stuff. Don't worry, it's never too late to start, to allow your body's innate intelligence to take over. So, Ben, to you, what is innate intelligence of your body, and how can we utilize our body's innate intelligence for staying trim, slowing aging, and having more energy?
I love the topic of the innate intelligence because when we think about the wisdom of the human body, what is it that heals the human body? You cut yourself and you could just stare at that cut, and over a matter of time that cut begins to heal itself. Like there's an intelligence that sends a signal to begin to heal itself. You sprain your ankle, there's inflammation there on purpose to help heal that area. you get sick with a virus or a flu. Your body raises the temperature to activate heat shock proteins. It's the fever. It's like there's an intelligence telling the body to do something for a specific reason. And for many, many years, scientists believe the intelligence is your DNA. Like that's that's what it is. Whatever genes you got, that's what's running the show, right? And then Dr. Bruce Lipton, cell biologist, so I know you know, brilliant guy, he came on the scene and he said, well, I want to challenge that notion that our genes determine our destiny and that our intelligence is our DNA nucleus. So what he did, which has been duplicated and verified, is he would remove the DNA nucleus from cells and observe what would happen next. And the cells would go on to live for months, sometimes several months before the cells went into this apoptosis program, cell death, showing him and showing the world that it's actually not the DNA nucleus running the show, because the cells went on to function when you removed it. So then he said, all right, where is the innate intelligence? So then he removed the membrane of the cell, and then there was instant death. And that goes to show that the cell membrane, this lipid bilayer that has these integral membrane proteins, these receptor sites integrated into them, that's what's running the show. That's what's actually sending signals to your DNA to turn on genes, turn off those genes. It's like the bodyguard of your cells. So the goal of activating your innate intelligence is finding ways to support the cell membrane. And fasting is a great way to do that. We'll talk about that. Ketosis, all the things you speak about are amazing ways to tap into that cell membrane, which activates and harnesses this innate intelligence, because life begins and ends at the cell membrane, literally. And the last thing I'll share about the membrane and the intelligence is that the innate intelligence is the world's greatest physician, doctor, healer, chiropractor, health coach. There's no doctor in the world that has the healing capabilities of your human body, this innate intelligence. There's no pill, surgery, shot, or even supplement that could replace the healing capabilities that you have within your body. So what we want to do, and what Rachel teaches, and what we're going to talk about today, is let's find the interference, remove it, and then harness that innate intelligence to go to work.
What kind of detoxification strategies did you employ when you were losing weight? And what do you do to give your body, mind, and spirit a break from toxins to stay trim, slow aging, and have more energy?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I didn't even know much about detoxification, right? So just by default, exercising a lot and playing basketball was activating my lymphatic system, which was helpful. But I didn't have a specific plan. I wasn't doing like coffee enemas or PC pushes or castor oil packs for my liver or eating bitters or things that I would teach now. And it was a lesson to be learned, right? Because to your point, I started to lose the weight, but I didn't feel that great. I was releasing all these toxins and reabsorbing them and auto intoxicating myself. So it took actually years after I lost the weight until I actually started to do real detox. And I even discovered, to your point, that I had mercury poisoning. I had 8 silver fillings in my mouth for 20 plus years. And that was interfering with my thoughts and my depression, because I had that mercury stored in my hypothalamus pituitary. So I had to get that removed safely from a biological dentist, and then get the mercury out of my body, get the lead out of my bones. But it started, to your point, when I started to learn about detox, it started with downstream detox, started with supporting my kidneys, it started with supporting my lymphatic system, the liver, that soccer mom organ that does so many things for us. So I would increase my bitter rich foods. I would start to do coffee enemas, castor oil packs, and phosphatidylcholine pushes to get bile out of the liver, and then maybe use binders to catch those toxins. So along the journey, I started to learn more about detox, but in the beginning, I did it the wrong way.
Yeah, to be completely forthcoming, detoxification has been something that's been front and center in my life over the last few months. All because someone sent me this detox kit, and then I started to see the results from it. I'm like, oh, snap. I got some work to do. I'm going to keep this up. And then when you're starting to detox, even like parasites from the central nervous system, I actually had visual disturbances and flashes.
Wow.
So these things that can accumulate in the body can impact your skin. You literally have things on your skin that, without realizing, you might think it's acne, but it's something that it's an organism inside you that's feeding on your life force, essentially. And they can impact your liver with liver flukes. I had some of those too. And I just felt like I was on Limitless once I started to properly go down the detoxification rabbit hole. And the easiest way to detox is to fast, isn't it?
If it's free and you get a result right away. Now, it's not what you would consider like getting metals out of your bones and brain tissue, but oh my gosh, it's a great reset. It checks the box on every health benefit you're seeking. But to your point, Rachel, it wasn't until I started to do real detox that I started to feel, like you said, limitless. I started to feel like what optimal health really should feel like, because I was doing keto and intermittent fasting. I had a CrossFit gym. I owned it at that time, but I still didn't feel that amazing until I actually removed the biggest form of toxicity in my mouth, which were those fillings, and then detoxed the mercury out. That's when I started to feel amazing. And then also I got out of a moldy home that was beating up my mitochondria too. So it was twofold.
Yeah, it's funny. Even when you try and move, most homes do have mold. And I just did an episode on air purification because when we have impurities in the air, and also if we're not biohacking our air, water, lighting, electromagnetics, and detoxifying our bodies, those are all avenues for toxins to accumulate in us that can pull from our energy, that can pull from our life force, that can mess with our brain function, organ function, and of course, the skin. So I have a question about ketones. So I've taken Gen Chem, Organic Chem, and Biochem, and I haven't gone down this rabbit hole of fully going into a state of ketosis. Tell us a little bit about that. So this is kind of the next thing I'm going to be learning with you, which I'm thrilled to have you on the show, because I see a lot of people losing weight by following a ketogenic diet. It seems to work really well. I work really well with a low carb diet. But how do ketones create healthier mitochondria and this mechanism called mitogenesis? Because aging truly is a result of your mitochondria shrinking and dying, is it not?
Yeah, exactly. The name of the game is mitochondria, right? Longevity, biohacking. If you want to live long, find ways to support the mitochondria. And I would argue this, Rachel. You might be doing low carb, but you're metabolically flexible, and you probably tap in and out of ketosis without even knowing it, right? I would venture to guess if you test throughout the weeks, you would see that actually you probably tap in and out. Maybe in the morning before you break your fast, you probably do tap into ketosis. And the way that I teach keto with my company Keto Camp is ketosis is one tool. It's not the only tool. We actually do not recommend or teach long-term ketosis. We teach what I call keto flexing, going in and out of ketosis. And for the majority of America, they really need to use this tool for maybe 2 to 3 months in a strict way and then flex in and out. And the reason I say that is because, as you probably know, there was a study that came out in 2018 from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. 8,000 plus people, 10-year study looking at how healthy or unhealthy are the American adult population, looking at blood pressure, BMI, other metrics, on medication, off medication. And they determined with that study that 88% of American adults are metabolically unhealthy. That was before COVID. It probably got worse. So I would say that they're in a keto deficiency. They really need ketosis. They're stuck burning sugar, creating metabolic diseases like insulin resistance and diabetes, but ketosis could put a dent in that. So what exactly is keto? How does it help your mitochondria? Well, we know that ketones are signaling molecules. When you lower your carbohydrates low enough, for most people, that's under 50 total grams of carbs per day. So that's very low carb, and increase your fat and protein. You're now going to burn, or I should say, use body fat as an energy source. And those fatty acids are shuttled to your liver. Your liver receives it, uses it for energy, and then boom, you produce ketones. That's called ketogenesis, the birth of ketones. And we know that ketones are they communicate with your mitochondria. And like you said, the mitochondria are not just energy factories, which that's true. The mitochondria produce energy, ATP. That's very important. But the mitochondria have a second role. They are also a surveillance system for threats. And this is called a cell danger response. Through the work of Dr. Robert Navio over the last few years, he determined that there's an intelligence in your mitochondria. And when the mitochondria is seeing a lot of threats, stress, in other words, like mental, emotional, chemical, physical, it'll shut down energy production to preserve life. So it has this dual role. And if it gets stuck in this stressful response, it's called the cell danger response. Long COVID is a cell danger response, and all these other conditions. But back to ketosis, when your body is producing ketones, those ketones actually communicate with your mitochondria to make more of themselves, to duplicate them. Like you said, mitogenesis, the creation of mitochondria. That's why when you look at the electron transport chain, which is looking at how energy is produced in your body and all these other metrics, one molecule of glucose yields about 32 to 36 ATP, which are these energy currencies for your audience that does not know that. One molecule of ketones produce 132 plus units of ATP. So it's about 400% more ATP from ketones versus glucose. And that's because of the new mitochondria that are being created through this process. So that's why I love it. It's one of the best ways to lower free radicals and produce more energy. And as you do that, it creates a lot of heat to create all that energy. So it raises the basal metabolic rate, which helps people lose weight, and at the same time lowers insulin, which helps them lose weight. So it helps the person lose weight, get healthy and lose weight in so many different ways.
Yeah, now that you mention that, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in a state of ketosis
I would
more
say I would put
often
my
than
money
not.
that you are.
Yeah. But it's interesting. When I was in Florida, we're doing social stuff, we're going out for foods. I'm having way more restaurant food than I usually do. Like literally, my husband and I, we make our dinners every night. We grow a lot of our own
Oh, that's so
greens.
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm in like farm area, which
I'm
is pretty neat.
jealous. I love that.
Just don't probably not jealous about the glycophosphate from across the street of the golf
Ah,
course, but
jeez.
it is what it is, right?
Yes.
Well, we can't have everything. We just kind of create the life that we need to live. But I'm really, and we want to live and desire to live. Desire is the best word to use there. But I'm always interested in skin cell health. Now, the skin cells have their own mitochondria, of course, but the skin that we see is actually dead. The skin is an organ, but what we see is not juicy and bloody and throbbing. It's actually dead skin. So, what we care about is what's going on in the dermis deep down. So, when you're using skincare, it's got to be able to create those signals, what you mentioned, with the cellular membrane of being the protector of the skin, or sorry, of the cell, Freudian slip. The skin is the protector of all of our cells. So when we are metabolically flexible, when we have the various body, mind, spirit, energy practices that we practice and cultivate that I share on the show for free here all the time, almost daily episodes, your skin will start to show this, that about 3 weeks, a couple of days to 3 weeks, if you're eating more garbage food, rancid oils, restaurant food, more alcohol, sugar, dairy than you're used to, your skin will show that because of your cell cycle from the dermis, the cells there to make their way up to the top of the skin where you can actually see it. But if we are more metabolically flexible, we can handle toxins and changes of our environment that impact the way that our genes express themselves so that our skins can stay a little bit more steady. But you might see if things are a little bit off, things like redness, maybe some breakouts, irritation, redness to the eyes, brain fog, and all that stuff. So yeah, the cell signaling pathways in our skin kind of overlaps with those cell receptors on the cell membrane. And so that's why I love talking about the skin. It's a lot less superficial than you may think. And love for FDN-Ps to be having a little bit more insights into assessing and looking at the skin for signals of inner inflammation, of leaky gut, and all of that stuff. But I'm curious what someone's skin looks like when they're in a state of ketosis for a long period of time. Do you notice changes in those that take your keto programs, changes in their skin?
Yeah, especially when they combine it with intermittent fasting and a carnivore approach, because intermittent fasting and a carnivore approach, short-term carnivore, not long-term, but both of those approaches, fasting and carnivore and ketosis, what they have in common is they all help with your gut, your digestive system. And you nailed it with leaky gut and the skin. I mean, when I see somebody with poor skin, acne, I just know that they have some gut dysbiosis going on, right? So fasting is great for the gut. As you know, it's like a reset for your digestive system. And I always give the analogy of how fasting repairs your digestive system, which in turn helps with your skin. I always give the analogy of a corporate worker. We're going to just call her Sandra. And let's say Sandra works 9 to 5 at her corporate job, day in, day out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And one of these days, she worked 8 hours in her cubicle, put in 8 hours of work, and she's tired. She put in 8 hours of work. So she's walking to her car, getting ready to get in her car, and she gets a phone call from her boss, and her boss is saying, Sandra, I know you're about to head out, but we need you to come back into the office. A new project just got started. We need you to come back in for 5 more hours. So she walks back to her office and works another 5 hours, and it's now 10 p.m. at night. She's exhausted, ready to go home and crash. And she gets the same phone call. Sandra, we need you to come back in and work for another 5 hours. Now, if this happened to her for days or weeks or months, she would be destroyed. This is exactly what's happening to our digestive system when we do not practice fasting, when we're eating every 2 to 3 hours. It's overwhelming and taxing the digestive system, creating leaky gut, leading to possibly autoimmune conditions, and skin issues will show up as a result. So fasting is that repair, that rest, that recovery for Sandra, for your gut, to get all this time to restore itself, and that will help with the skin. So we've seen that a lot with my Keto Camp Academy students. They take photos and they're like, look, my rosacea is down. They'll do before and afters. Look, this rash is down. And then when they combine it with carnivore and they remove all these anti-nutrients, huge game changer. So yeah, the combination of ketosis, fasting, and carnivore, I've seen some really cool skin victories in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. The skin just is like a gateway and a signal to what's going on internally.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. What is the energy and the woo of fasting and the benefits of fasting? And if we think from an ancient perspective, fasting was often done by priests and priestesses when they were preparing for something or they had rituals coming up. They would do fast from food. They wouldn't have alcohol. They would drink, special water and all of this. So in your understanding historically, how has fasting been used to enhance our mental and spiritual awareness? And what is the woo and energy of fasting? Let's get right into it.
Yeah, I love it. The woo of fasting, the woo and energy of fasting. Well, to your point, fasting has been around forever. There's nothing new about it. It's an ancient healing strategy, just like ketosis. So fasting and keto, they've both been around for as long as humans have existed. There's nothing new about it. It's just maybe new to you or nuanced, but it's been around forever. And the history of it is super interesting. I mean, every religion has a form of fasting, whether it's like Christianity or the Muslim with Ramadan or whatever, India, every religion has their form. That's the only thing they could agree about. Different religions, it's like, yeah, fast, but they teach it in a different way. And then there's another interesting historic story about fasting, and it's the ancient Romans. The ancient Romans back in the day, when people were having seizures back then, they didn't know what a seizure was, right? So they thought these people that were convulsing and shaking and spitting out saliva, they thought they were having seizures. I mean, they thought they were actually possessed by the demons, by devils. They didn't know about seizures. So they would take these individuals, lock them into a room, no food, no water, come back several hours later, and then, of course, they produce ketones. We now know it helps with epileptic seizures, and they would think we starved the demons out of them, right? They would force fast them. Isn't that wild?
And that's free. Like everybody can access this. And one of the conversations that I know that you've had with Mindy Pels and Dr. Pompa is that a lot of people think that biohacking and being healthy is just for the elite, it's just for the wealthy, but that's not actually true. Fasting is free. In fact, you're going to be spending less money on food because you'll be more hyper focused. And with the lifestyle I lead, I drink a lot of this is a detoxification protein powder. I drink a lot of my nutrients and supplements to give my gut a little bit of a break, but I always have some type of afternoon snack and dinner, but I do have a pretty narrow eating window. But I always seem to have some of the best intuitive hits actually in the morning when I am in a more fasted state, as well as when I have the most mental clarity and I'm in that creative flow state. So, what are some of the things that you do to live your best life? And also, perhaps even tap into your highest potential. What are some of your favorite biohacks?
I have one that I'll mention, but I just want to piggyback of what you just said about fasting, like being on top of your game when you're in a fasted state. Totally could resonate with that. When I'm speaking on stage, I'm always fasted. It's like a superpower. You just feel so awesome. And yeah, you could call it like energy or woo, whatever it is, but you have all these resources being diverted to you because your body thinks you're going through a famine and it doesn't know about Uber Eats or DoorDash or the supermarket. So it pumps you full of energy and resources to go out there and hunt and kill. But thank God we're not going to have to do that. So we're just going to use that energy and focus to crush a podcast, speak on stage, or a sales call, or whatever you want to do, play with your kids. So it's like a superpower. When you're in a fasted state, when you're metabolically healthy, you get all these amazing processes. And of course, there's autophagy and all these other things going on, apoptosis. But to answer your question about, what are my favorite things to feel limitless and what do I want to do to like my favorite biohack? It's a vitamin that's called vitamin G, and it's the world's strongest vitamin in the world. There, you can't. I see that. I love that. You can't overdose on it. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, he did brain scans on individuals who took vitamin G, and he observed what happened after they took it, and he saw 1,200 plus chemical reactions take place almost instantaneously when they took vitamin G that put their body, their brain in this anti-inflammatory healing state. And that is gratitude. You have the title right there. Gratitude is vitamin G. Vitamin G, strongest vitamin in the world, because what you appreciates. It expands. It's a universal law. What you feed energy to expands. And it is not woo-woo because it's a universal law. Like I mentioned, just like gravity. You might say gravity's woo-woo, Ben. I don't believe in it. But then I'll hold something up in front of you and show you, yeah, you may not believe in it, but look, boom, drop the pen right in front of your eyes, even though you don't believe in it. That's a universal law, gravity. So is what you feed energy to expands. And that's what gratitude is. So here's what people do. They do the opposite of gratitude, Rachel. They're focusing on all the things that are not working for them. Why am I so unhealthy? Why am I so ugly? Why am I so broke? Why am I so whatever stinking thinking thought? And if your thinking is thinking, your dreams are shrinking. You'll get more of things to complain about. If you're gossiping or angry about what's happening in the world, you'll get more things to gossip about and more things to be angry about in the world. But when you do the opposite and appreciate and have gratitude for things, whether it's a relationship or StreamYard or a podcast mic or the water I have here, I mean, what you appreciates. There's a part of the brain called the reticular activation system, RAS. It's a selective seeking mechanism. Whatever you feed it, you see more of. You want to buy a red truck, and you buy a red truck, all of a sudden you see red trucks all over your streets because now you've activated the RAS to see it. They were always there, but now you're really paying attention to it. Same thing with gratitude. When you're appreciative, you start to see all the things you're grateful for. But when you're angry and resentful, you start to see all the things that you're not grateful for. So it's really up to you. And you have 60,000 thoughts per day. Choose wisely because you are the most influential person you'll speak to today. So for me, every day is a gratitude practice, and that's changed my life. And to your point, it's free, just like fasting. And it's such an amazing biohack. You can't even overdose with vitamin G.
Oh, I love it. And funny, this overlap with being in the energy of beauty and radiance. So instead of saying like my acne or my hyperpigmentation or my rosacea, or what you mentioned of how sometimes people reaffirm, the woes of their life, you're going to be more in that. So when you start to take the time to care for yourself, to groom your beautiful, delicious, hot, radiant, sexy body, you are going to be receiving more beauty and radiance in your life. And trust me, you're going to be able to navigate this life with more grace and ease. And it's like this law of attraction thing with our words, with the energy that we sit in. Like attracts like. By the way, my one-on-one clients, I love you all. And it's just so nice to connect with like-minded people here on the show and in my one-on-one work and skin camps. So I would love for you to share with us any closing words. I want to be sensitive to time here. Any closing words, Ben? And also, how can people work with you?
The closing words would be, you got to do the inner work. Me and Rachel could teach you, the best foods for your liver, the best detox for the gallbladder, the best way to do coffee enemas, the best way to do keto, intermittent fasting, and all that's fantastic. But it's only going to work as much as you work on yourself when it comes to this mental six pack, right? The inner sizing, the mindset, the self-development practices. That's where the real transformation actually starts. And that's where you actually make some huge strides. And if you're skipping that, you're skipping the foundation. And your house of health is only as strong as the foundation it's built on. And that foundation involves mindset, it involves sleep, it involves gratitude, it involves movement. Like, build that strong foundation, and then you could have the nootropics and the biooptimizers, Nutopia, or the methylene blue, or all the supplements. All that is fantastic, but if you're skipping the fundamentals, your house is only going to be as strong as that. So what's going to end up happening if you skip that, the health walls, if you will fall down one by one. So I would say do the work. Read books like Dr. Wayne Dyer or Tony Robbins. I mean, whoever you resonate with, like, work on yourself, work on those thoughts. If you choose better thoughts, you will change your life, because you don't get what you want, you get what you are. And what you are those 60,000 thoughts you have every single day. And if it's true, we become our thoughts, then that means you have 60,000 opportunities to put your body in a healing, anti-inflammatory state. And Dr. Bruce Lipton has proven that your thoughts are frequencies that have the ability to penetrate that membrane that we spoke about earlier and communicate with your DNA to produce a protein. If it's a negative thought, a hateful thought, a resentful thought, the protein that your DNA creates is an inflammatory protein. But if it's a loving, grateful, abundant thought, the protein is an anti-inflammatory protein. And that's not woo. He has the research to back that up. So I would say, as my closing thoughts, do the inner work. Make that a big priority, and everything else will upgrade, whether it's keto, paleo, carnivore, whatever it is. All the supplements will upgrade by default. And the best place to learn about my work and my Keto Camp podcast, which you're going to be on soon, Rachel, you mentioned earlier, Keto Camp YouTube and social media, is my website. It has all of that, which is benazadi.com.
Wonderful. And thank you also for those final words, because if you want the best hair, skin, and nails of your life, there's really no point investing in a skincare routine, dermal rolling routine, or in-clinic laser skin rejuvenation or other rejuvenation options if you're not already reducing the inner inflammation and setting the groundwork for healthy body, mind, spirit, energy, and also healthy detoxification pathways. So everyone, please go and learn more about Ben Azadi. His information is linked up in the show notes of this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this content with a friend or family member. Leave me your questions about skin and fasting and ketosis and some of the experiences you've had in the comment section as well. And if you have any questions from today's show, feel free to email me directly, info@rachelvarga.ca, and check out some of the things that are happening now in my world at rachelvarga.ca. I cannot wait to collaborate with you again. Ben Azadi, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I love your energy. I love seeing high vibrating men like yourself crushing life and helping to make an impact and heal others in the process. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Rachel. Love the work you're doing. It's a pleasure being on your show. Thank you so much for having me today.